Every breakup eventually arrives at the same destination: silence. No more late-night conversations. No more endless what-if scenarios. No more desperate words thrown into emptiness, hoping for a reply that never comes. Only silence. And inside that silence, our hidden war begins. A war far more ruthless than screaming arguments or emotional pleas. It is a war that challenges your discipline, stretches your patience, and shakes the very core of who you are. Most men misunderstand this moment. They believe no contact is a strategy aimed at her, a trick to make her miss them, a way to spark her emotions, a method to regain control of the story they think they've lost. But here is the reality. No contact has nothing to do with her. It has everything to do with you. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about breaking the chains of emotional dependency. It's about remembering that your worth, your validation, your identity never depended on her in the first place. This silent battle is the hardest one you'll ever fight. Not because it's fought with words or gestures, but because it's fought in the quiet moments when your mind screams for answers, when every instinct begs you to reach out just to feel alive again. And yet, the man who remains still, the man who masters himself, instead of trying to control her, he wins something far greater than a reply. He wins himself. The Stoics understood this truth deeply. Zeno, Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, they all taught that genuine power is internal. You cannot control her. You cannot control the world. But you can control yourself, your actions, your thoughts, your responses. That is where strength lives. That is why silence is not merely a tactic, but a discipline, a spiritual forge that shapes a man into someone calm, untouchable, and whole. In this video, we will break down how to win this silent battle, not with tricks, not with manipulation, but with Stoic mastery, the discipline to detach, the courage to grow, the choice to use silence not as punishment, but as a weapon of transformation if you are ready to stop chasing, to stop bleeding your energy into the past, and to start mastering the only battle that truly matters. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below. I master the silence. Now, let's begin. Number 1. Understanding the real purpose of no contact. Most men begin the path of no contact with the wrong vision. They treat it like a move in a chess game, a calculated tactic to make her miss them, a silent strategy to spark regret. They imagine silence will pull her back, that withholding attention will restore their power. But the harsh reality is this: if your silence is about her, you've already lost, because the purpose of no contact is not manipulation. It is not about forcing her to see your worth. It is about liberation. It is about cutting the invisible cord that keeps you emotionally enslaved to her approval, her presence, her validation. Every moment you shape your silence around her. You hand her the strings to your life. Every thought of whether she notices, whether she cares, whether she regrets, keeps you tied to the same prison you are trying to escape. The true aim of no contact is to reclaim the energy you've been leaking away, to take back every ounce of strength you poured into someone else's hands, and to redirect it inward into your growth, your discipline, your mission. Epictetus captured it perfectly. No man is free who is not master of himself. No contact is that mastery lived out. It is the choice to stop reacting and start choosing. It is the moment you stop allowing someone else's absence to dictate your sense of worth. It is the awakening that your value has always been yours to define. From a psychological perspective, this is where healing begins. Every text you resist sending, every social profile you refuse to check, every moment you sit in stillness instead of chasing closure, these are not small gestures. They are rewiring moments. Those old chemical loops, those dopamine hits from her attention, the obsessive patterns that once ruled you, they begin to weaken. Your mind starts to clear. Your focus begins to return. And in that clarity, strength is born. No contact is not punishment. It is not about teaching her a lesson or proving a point. It is about teaching yourself the deepest truth, that you are enough without her. That your peace, your confidence, and your future are not tied to her choices. And when you finally see this, the silent battle transforms. It stops being a game of power. It becomes something sacred. It becomes the discipline that reshapes you, not just in this season, but for the rest of your life. The real victory is not when she reaches out. It is not when she regrets. The real victory is when you wake up and realize you no longer need her presence to feel whole. That is when you have mastered the silence. That is when you have mastered yourself. Number 2, the psychological pull of silence. Silence carries more weight than words. When you practice no contact, not as a performance, not as a game, but as a disciplined act of detachment, it sparks a psychological reaction few people can handle. Human beings live by patterns. She had a rhythm with you. She spoke, and you answered. She pulled away, and you chased. She tested, and you reassured. That rhythm repeated until suddenly nothing. No calls, no texts, no validation, just silence. That silence creates a vacuum, and the human mind hates vacuums. When a predictable pattern disappears, tension rises. Questions echo in her thoughts. Why isn't he chasing? Has he moved on? Does he not care anymore? That uncertainty grows, and the silence becomes deafening. Here's the paradox. It's not powerful because you're doing something. It's powerful because you've stopped doing everything. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology named it. By withdrawing from what you cannot control and turning inward, you create space in the world around you, and space within yourself. That space is power. Psychologists call this pattern interruption. When you remove your energy from a cycle that once fed her sense of control, you disrupt the narrative she's been telling herself. And whether she admits it or not, the disruption plants a seed of uncertainty that grows each day. You remain silent. But here's what you must remember. This isn't about playing games. It isn't about trying to win. The psychological pull of silence is only a byproduct of discipline, not the purpose of it. The real purpose is inward. The real purpose is transformation, to become the man who no longer feels the need to fill silence with words, messages, or noises. To become the man whose life is already full of growth, of mission, of control. And that's the paradox of silence. The moment you stop using it as a tool to chase her reaction is the moment its power becomes undeniable. When you detach with discipline, silence no longer feels like waiting. It becomes presence. It becomes strength. It becomes the unspoken force that shapes both her perception and your own mastery. In silence, you learn the truth. You do not need her attention to be whole. You do not need her response to validate your worth. And when you finally let go of chasing her reaction, you discover the deeper pull, the pull of becoming untouchable within yourself. Number 3, detachment versus pretending. There is a world of difference between true detachment and simply pretending not to care. And that difference changes everything. Most men blur the line. They cut off contact. They post philosophical quotes online. They tell themselves they've moved on. But behind the surface, their minds still orbit around her. Every thought, every action, still chained to her presence. That isn't detachment. That is performance. Real detachment doesn't ask for an audience. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't require validation. True detachment is quiet. It's internal. It is the discipline of a man who accepts what is. A man who no longer fights against reality. A man who refuses to let another person's choices dictate his peace. It's the calm strength of someone who knows he has nothing to prove. Not to her. Not to anyone. The Stoics reminded themselves of this endlessly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Pretending is about shaping her perception of you. Detachment is about shaping yourself. From a psychological standpoint, this difference is critical. Pretending keeps you tethered. If your silence is still aimed at her, she holds the strings. Every post designed for her to see, every signal meant to spark her curiosity, every moment you wonder if she notices keeps you inside the same prison you claim to have left. But when you detach for yourself, when the silence is about healing, growth, and clarity, transformation begins. That's when silence shifts from a tactic into a teacher. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop pretending, the moment you stop performing, you step into a rare version of yourself. One that is magnetic, not because you're trying to be, but because calm self-assurance is rare. The man who doesn't need to be noticed often becomes the man everyone notices. Because confidence born from freedom carries a presence that can't be faked. Detachment is not indifference. It isn't numbness. It's not coldness or apathy. It is freedom. It is the quiet knowing that your worth is no longer tied to anyone else. It is the realization that your peace cannot be stolen because it no longer rests in her hands. Silence, born from performance, is fragile. It cracks the moment she ignores it. But silence born from acceptance is unshakable. It doesn't demand attention. It radiates strength without trying. And here is the deepest truth. The silence of a man who has truly detached speaks louder than any performance ever could. Number 4. Why breaking no contact destroys you. Every man who has attempted no contact knows this moment. The silence grows heavy. The emptiness presses in, and your mind begins to race. Maybe if I just reach out once. Maybe if I explain myself, she'll finally understand. Maybe if I show her I've changed, she'll come back. That voice feels convincing. That temptation is powerful. And it is exactly why so many men fail. Here's the reality. Breaking no contact destroys you, not simply because it erases the progress you've made, but because it reaffirms the very chain you're trying to break. The moment you break, you send a message. not only to her, but to yourself. You confess that your emotions rule you. You admit your discipline is weak. You declare that her validation is still your lifeline. The Stoics warned about this trap. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." When you reach out, you're grasping for control over something that was never yours to command. And in that desperate reach, you surrender. The only real power you possess, mastery over yourself. From a psychological perspective, breaking no contact resets the entire cycle. It reactivates the dopamine loops in your brain, the same circuits that kept you addicted to her attention. Every unanswered text, every cold reply, every polite but distant message pulls you right back to square one. More desperate, more anxious, more dependent than before. The silent battle is not only about staying away from her, it is about proving to yourself that you can. Each day you maintain silence is a small victory, a quiet reminder that you are stronger than your impulses. But the moment you break, you teach your mind the opposite, that you cannot be trusted, that your discipline collapses under pressure. This is not about punishment. It is not about shame. It is about truth. Every time you break no contact, you rob yourself of the power that silence was building. And the man who continues to rob himself can never become the man he was meant to be. Yes, the silence is difficult. Yes, the urge is strong. But strength is not forged in ease. Strength is born in discomfort. The man who endures the silence, who sits with the tension without flinching, who refuses to fold under the weight of longing, that man is the one who wins, because he proves that his discipline is stronger than his emotions. He proves that his peace is no longer tied to anyone else. And he proves that true freedom belongs only to the man who can master himself. Number 5. The Stoic approach to the silent battle. The silent battle is never easy. It is a war fought not on the outside, but in the hidden corners of your mind. Every day, the urge rises. The urge to break. The urge to reach out. The urge to fill the void with noise, just to feel something again. But this is the very moment when the Stoic approach becomes your greatest weapon, because Stoicism was never about avoiding pain. It was about mastering pain. It was about embracing discomfort and letting it forge you into something stronger. Marcus Aurelius gave us the blueprint when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That one line contains the essence of no contact. You cannot control her thoughts. You cannot control her choices. You cannot control the story she tells herself. But what you can control, what you must control, is you. Your actions, your energy, your discipline. The Stoic man knows that silence is not weakness. It is not fear. It is proof of mastery. Each time you resist the temptation to reach out, you sharpen the blade of self-control. Each day, you direct your focus inward toward your growth, your mission, your strength. You lay down a foundation no one can take from you. From a psychological perspective, this shift is transformative. The moment you stop treating no contact as a tactic to win her back, and instead embrace it as a daily practice of discipline and self-respect, the entire game changes. You no longer feel powerless. You no longer obsess over what lies outside your control. You move with calm certainty, because you finally understand that your peace belongs to you and to you alone. And here lies the beauty of the Stoic approach. Over time, silence itself changes shape. At first, it feels like a battle, but slowly, it begins to feel like freedom. You are no longer trying to win anything. You are no longer measuring success by her reaction, because you have already won the only battle that matters, the battle with yourself. The Stoic approach reframes silence. It is no longer a punishment. It is no longer a waiting game. It is a forge. It is a daily ritual where discipline burns away weakness and leaves behind strength. The man who embraces this process discovers something powerful. That silence, when chosen with purpose, is not emptiness. It is presence. It is clarity. It is the unshakable calm of someone who has mastered the one thing no one can take away: his own mind. Number 6. The power of redirection. Silence without action is not strength. It's waiting, and waiting is weakness. The true power of no contact isn't found in sitting still, counting days, and hoping she notices. It's found in redirection, taking all the energy you once poured into her and investing it back into yourself. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Epictetus taught that freedom comes not from clinging to what you cannot control, but from turning your attention to what you can. That is the heart of redirection, shifting your focus away from her world and back into yours, from her choices to your growth, from her silence to your mission. From a psychological perspective, this is how real healing begins. The human brain despises a void. When you cut her out of your daily life, you feel it instantly. The emptiness, the broken routines, the sense of loss that lingers in the silence. But here lies the opportunity. When you redirect that energy, the void becomes fuel. What once felt like pain starts to feel like progress. Every hour that used to be wasted on her attention can now be invested in yourself. Start simple. Hit the gym with relentless consistency. Build the side hustle you've been delaying for years. Read, write, learn, feed your mind. Step into new environments and expand your world so much that hers no longer feels like the center of it. Because here's the quiet truth. Redirection doesn't just help you heal. It evolves you. Every ounce of energy you stop bleeding into the past becomes the foundation of the man you're becoming. And that man, he doesn't chase. He doesn't wait. He doesn't even care if she's watching, because his life has grown bigger than her. The silent battle is not truly won by waiting her out. It is won when you use that silence as raw material to build a version of yourself so disciplined, so powerful, that her absence stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like liberation. That is the essence of Stoic redirection. You stop pouring energy into what is left. You stop clinging to what is outside your control. And you begin to shape a life so strong, so full, that no woman's silence has the power to shake it. This is not waiting. This is becoming, and the man who learns to redirect his energy will never beg for attention again, because he will have become the source of his own. Number 7, when she breaks the silence. If you remain disciplined long enough, there may come a moment when she breaks the silence. It won't always be dramatic. It might be a simple text, a casual question, something that doesn't even demand a real answer. A short, "Hey, how have you been?" And in that instant, your emotions will surge. The old hunger for validation comes rushing back, the hit of dopamine, the temptation to believe that her message is proof you've won. But here's the truth. That moment is not the finish line. It is the test, and the outcome of that test depends entirely on the man you have become in the silence. The Stoics would remind you that your response or your refusal to respond must come from calm, not ego. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Your silence has built strength. Do not let an impulsive reaction tear it all down. From a psychological perspective, her reaching out doesn't always mean what you imagine. Sometimes it's curiosity. Sometimes it's boredom. Sometimes it's just her way of making sure you're still there, still circling her orbit. None of that changes the essential fact. The focus must remain on you. If you decide to respond, do so with calm detachment. Not to reopen the old cycle, not to prove that you've changed, but to show that your peace no longer depends on her attention. And if you choose silence, let it come from strength, not spite. Because silence born from detachment is louder than any words you could ever send. The man who truly understands the silent battle knows this. Her breaking the silence is not the victory. The victory is that you no longer need her to. That is the paradox. What once would have sent you into a spiral of hope or anxiety now becomes neutral, almost irrelevant. Her text doesn't define you. Her voice doesn't anchor you. Her attention doesn't validate you. The man forged in silence doesn't measure his worth by someone else's response. He measures it by his ability to stay calm, steady, and whole, no matter what arrives on his screen. And when you reach that level, you realize something powerful. The real victory is not in her words, but in your stillness, not in her attention, but in your detachment, not in her return, but in your freedom. Number 8, true mastery is indifference. True mastery is indifference. Not the kind you perform to make her think you don't care. Not the shallow mask of pretending you've moved on, but the quiet indifference that grows within as you master yourself. It is the kind of calm where her actions, whether she reaches out, disappears, or says nothing at all, no longer disturb your peace. She loses the power to shake your world, because that power was never hers to begin with. The Stoics taught this with clarity. Freedom is never found in controlling others. It is found in controlling yourself. Epictetus wrote, "Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will flow smoothly." That is the heart of indifference. It is not numbness. It is not coldness. It is acceptance, a deep knowing that your worth has never depended on another person's approval. From a psychological perspective, true indifference rewires everything. You stop chasing the emotional highs and crashing with the lows of her behavior. Your validation no longer flows from her attention. It begins to flow from within, from the quiet pride of a man who knows who he is and where he is going. And here lies the paradox. When you reach this level, you become magnetic. Not because you're trying to attract, not because you're performing strength, but because calm confidence is rare. People are drawn to the man who doesn't need anything from them. But here's the irony. By the time you reach this stage, you won't even care, because the man who has mastered indifference has already won. The ultimate victory in the silent battle is not her regret, not her attention, not her apology. It is the unshakable strength of knowing you've built a life so full, so disciplined, so grounded, that no one past, present, or future has the power to shake it. That is indifference in its highest form. Not an act, but a state of being. Not a mask, but true mastery. The man who reaches this point doesn't just survive silence, he transcends it, and in that transcendence, he discovers the rarest freedom of all the freedom to live unshaken, untouched, and unbothered, no matter what anyone else does. Number 9, the paradox of no contact. The paradox of no contact is both simple and profound. The moment you stop needing it to work is the moment it finally does. Most men begin no contact with a hidden agenda. They think, if I stay silent, she will miss me. She will regret leaving. She will come back. But that mindset keeps them chained to her. Every day of silence is not strength. It is waiting. It is hoping. It is building your self-worth around what she does or doesn't do. And that is why so many men feel powerless, even when they think they're winning. The real breakthrough comes when you no longer care whether she reacts at all, when the silence is no longer about her, but about you, your peace, your growth, your discipline. That is the moment no contact stops being a tactic and becomes freedom. The Stoics had a word for this: apatheia, not apathy, not emotional deadness, but freedom from unhealthy attachments. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that life is too short to waste on things beyond his control. When you internalize this truth, you stop obsessing over the outcome and start mastering the process. From a psychological perspective, this shift changes everything. The chemical hooks in your brain, the addiction to her attention, the craving for her response begin to loosen. The highs and lows flatten. You feel calmer. You feel stronger. You begin to feel unshakable. And here is the irony. It is usually at this very point, when you no longer need her approval, that she begins to feel the weight of your absence the most. Your silence, once a tactic, has become something else, entirely a reflection of the man you've become. But by then, you will have outgrown the version of yourself who would have cared. Her reaction no longer defines you. Her attention no longer validates you. Her silence no longer frightens you. That is the paradox of no contact. The silence does not change her. It changes you. And when you change, you don't just win the silent battle, you transcend it. You stop playing the game altogether. Because the man who learns to detach, to discipline himself, and to find strength in stillness is no longer seeking victory from another person. He has already found it within himself. Number 10, rebuilding beyond the battle. The silent battle is not the destination. It is only the doorway. What you choose to do beyond that silence will decide whether this season of your life becomes a prison or a foundation. Too many men reach the point of silence, even succeed at no contact, yet never take the next step. They sit in the quiet, not rebuilding, but waiting. They obsess, replaying memories, clinging to the faint hope that she might return, and in doing so, they waste the most valuable opportunity of their lives. The true purpose of no contact is not to get her back. It is to get yourself back. It is to strip away neediness, to burn off self-doubt, to kill the constant hunger for validation, and to replace it all with something unshakable, a life you own, a mission that drives you, and a selfhood no one can ever take away. The Stoics lived for this kind of growth. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that life is short, that time slips away, and that the highest good is to live with virtue, purpose, and discipline. That is what rebuilding beyond the battle truly means, turning your silence into action, your pain into fuel, your loss into liberation. From a psychological perspective, this rebuild rewires your very identity. The man you become through this process is not the same man who entered it. You will notice it in the way you speak, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you respond when life throws challenges at you. You will begin to move with calm confidence, because you will have proven to yourself that you can conquer the hardest enemy of all, your own mind. And here's the truth: once you have rebuilt, you will never fight for attention again. You won't need to, because the man who is full within himself does not chase validation from others. He attracts it without trying. Rebuilding beyond the battle is not about revenge. It is not about regret. It is about freedom. It is about finally living life on your own terms. With a strength forged in silence and refined by discipline, the silent battle was never truly about her. It was never about who texted first, who gave in, or who appeared to win. It was always about you, your discipline, your growth, your ability to rise above the noise and master yourself. No contact is not a game. It is a declaration, a vow you make to yourself: I will not chase what has left. I will not beg for what is beyond my control. I will build myself instead. That is what true strength looks like. That is the essence of Stoicism. Not manipulation, not performance, but transformation, a man reborn beyond the battle. And when you reach this understanding, her silence, her reaction, or even her regret no longer matter, because you've already won the only battle that counts, the battle with yourself. If you are ready to stop chasing, to stop wasting your energy on the past, and to begin building a life so strong, so unshakable that you never fight for attention again, now is the time. Hit the like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below. I master the silence. This is the Stoic spirit, where men rise, rebuild, and live untouchable.